Oh, Philadelphia is on the east coast of the United States, and it's between Washington D.C. and New York. Agar, if I had to put it in the context of India, I would say Philadelphia would be somewhere like
Chandigarh.
Assam के side के beach में, some city at the edge of Assam. That's where equivalent it would be. But it's a very historic old town. It is one of the oldest cities in the United States. Compared to India, very young, about 250, 300 years old. But all the historic events of the US started in Philadelphia. Just the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the Revolutionary War, everything happened in Philadelphia. America started in Philadelphia.
Fantastic. I think we're live on YouTube now, and it's 4:30. We have more than 50 participants. And if you allow me, Naren, why don't we start?
Irshad.
Fantastic. So good evening, teachers. Good evening, students. Welcome to this wonderful webinar on Ideas That Matter. We have with us the very charming, very inspirational Dr. Naren Chirmule with us. My name is Atul Khosla, and I'll be the host for the day today. A quick introduction to Naren. Naren is a biotechnologist by profession, a musician and an artist by heart, and a motivational speaker by what he does at the moment. A quick background: he did his PhD from India, moved to the United States, worked with top universities like University of Pennsylvania, worked with top companies like Amgen, which is the #1 biotech company in the world. And then Swades hit him, and he came back to India and became the head of research for Biocon. I think all of you would have heard about Biocon. He retired as the head of research, set up his own company, which is in Pune, but he spends his time now motivating students, motivating teachers on a bunch of very, very inspirational things. And he talks about self-awareness, which is going to be the topic of today. He's going to talk about innovation and self-awareness. My name is Atul Khosla. Like I said, I am the founder and pro-vice chancellor of Shullini University, Kasauli Hills, Himachal Pradesh. Kasauli is a beautiful place, and I'm so glad I'm here today. Shullini is one of India's leading universities, as all of you would know. I'm a BTech from IIT Kanpur. I then did my MBA, and I worked many, many years in the corporate world, in the industry, across many, many multinationals. And then the teaching bug hit me, and I teach now, and I'm so glad to be with all of you today. So we won't take longer, Naren. Let's dive into the topic. I hope you have your flute with you today, because Naren is a great musician. He's been learning how to play the flute over the last 4 to 5 years, or even before that. I'd love you to play the flute at some point of time, Naren, and I think it dovetails very well with the topic, innovation. So over to you, Naren Chirmule, very charming Naren Chirmule.
Thank you so much, Atul, and I want to thank you and your team, Shikha, and others who have done a fantastic job in terms of organizing all of this. So thank you very much. Atul, I'm going to be requesting you to help me in this presentation, especially with the work that you are doing on innovation in education. So maybe in the midway of this presentation, I will be inviting you. So thank you again. Welcome, everyone. I like to speak on what I call my experiments with self-awareness. Quick background, Atul already mentioned that. I did my high school in Lucknow and in 1977. And then I did my PhD from University of Bombay in Tata Hospital. I specialize in development of biologics and vaccines, and that's what my career has been. And my focus my personal growth focus in the last several years has been to be able to speak publicly. And I think Atul will probably connect a little bit about that topic in the middle of the conference. Now, in decisions, in inflection points, I like to talk about inflection points because certain things in your life happen which enable you to do very different things in your life. So for me, when I started doing my PhD, I had a decision to make whether to join PhD or go to MBA and do marketing. And for whatever reasons there were at that time, I chose to do my PhD. And that sort of made my career to where it was. Not that marketing was different, it was different. I would have chosen a different career. But these decisions are very, very important to make. Another decision I made about 5 years ago was whether to come back to India after working in the US for 30 years. And then I came back. And literally my life has changed so dramatically that I'm enjoying life now. And I live both in the US and in India. I call myself, the world is my city. So I don't make any demarcations. So today I will be talking about a topic which I have been really researching quite a bit. It's called curiosity, and we'll explore what curiosity means. Before that, my higher level understanding of my own self is through this process of being aware, which is a state of being conscious about something. And how do you become aware? Being observant of your surroundings and senses, doing things mindfully, pausing between activities, and listening. The process of awareness is very complicated. It's very difficult to look inside yourself and ask questions of yourself in a systematic manner. So there are different methodologies I have used to try to introspect. And one of them is just writing this table. These concentric circles define what I'm thinking for myself, what's going around me in my city, what may be happening in my country, and what's happening in the world. And you can see some of the things that I have written here. So this is a process to start interrogating what's happening, and this allows you to dig deeper into yourself. So let's move on to curiosity. And I've used the topic of new innovations as a mechanism to understand what curiosity means. So what is man's best invention ever? It is the wheel. We all know that, right? And we say, of course, man invented wheel, and it must be absolutely fantastic. It is so good that we use a term, please don't reinvent the wheel. So it's so good. So we don't want anything like it anymore. But the weird thing is that there is no animal with a wheel. So it can't be that good. You can't climb stairs with a wheel. Wheel actually is pretty inefficient in terms of locomotion and movement. So the evolutionary process has not used the wheel as an evolutionary process, even though it's man's best invention. So just a concept to think about is innovation has to be application oriented. And I'll talk a little bit about the differences, different types of innovations. And here it is. So I approach innovation in two different ways. I call it the top-down approach and the bottoms-up approach. So in the top-down approach, what happens is, whenever there's an innovation required, it is usually to solve a problem. Some problem, kuch problem ho raha hai, and we have to solve this problem. So usually the problem is a very difficult problem to solve. And so what we do is we break the problem into equal parts or some parts, and we try to say, okay, let's break the problem down and make it into small parts so that it's easier to solve all the problems, smaller problems. And then we'll reconstruct the problem to see if we have solved it. So what happens is we try to solve all the small problems, and over a course of time, we solve majority of the problems, but ek chhut jata hai. One problem is so difficult that we said, isko rehne do, 3 solve ho gaye, it must be good. And then we squint our eyes and we say, okay, theek hai, looks like the problem is solved, great. And we are very, very happy, right? When you go through time, the whole thing falls apart. Because that piece that you didn't solve was actually a very critical piece. So we don't realize, so this is the top-down approach of solving the problem by breaking it down into multiple pieces. Then what's the bottoms-up approach? The bottoms-up approach is there are a lot of very, very, very small problems, and you solve one problem at a time, and you solve it, and then you move on. And in this process, when you solve that little problem, the solution for that problem is forever. So what are examples of this? And I work in the pharmaceutical industry, so I'm going to give you an example of a drug. There's a drug that is called Vioxx. It was one of the most remarkable drugs for pain medication ever generated. When you took this drug, all kinds of pains were removed. You would block not only headache, but very, very severe pains could be blocked by this. Arthritis, many pains were affected. And clinical trials were done and it was approved. It was being used in the market. But when millions of people started taking it, some side effects started coming up. People started having heart attacks. So this is the process of top-down innovation, where we created a problem, we solved a problem, but not completely. And then when you saw the small problem that came up, then now Vioxx is out of the market. From the bottoms-up approach, evolution uses the bottoms-up approach. So you have tadpoles in the pond, and the tadpoles need to now come out of the pond and become a frog. For them to become a frog, evolution has to go through millions of years of mutations of all kinds of things. They'll try all kinds of different things, and ultimately one of the mutation will be successful, and that will become a frog. And the frog lives for millions of years. So innovation is either top-down or bottoms-up. There's no magic in one or the other. I think the awareness of whether a particular innovation that you're doing is top-down or bottoms-up is something that you can consider. So for example, innovations can be in science and art, and of course, commerce and other topics. I've just listed a few. And I've said, okay, discovery of DNA is a bottoms-up approach. Light bulb may be a top-down approach. Similarly, vaccine, discovery of the aeroplane, telephone. In art, making of the ceramic kiln revolutionized pottery. Putting paints in tubes was an innovative discovery. And then stained glass and wood block printing, all of these innovations can be either top down and bottom up. And once you know what they are doing, you become more aware of how to solve these problems. So I'm going to hand over this topic right now to Atul, because I think I really want him to talk about innovation as it relates to innovation from his point of view, but especially in the education business. So Atul.
Thank you, Naren. I would like to start by saying, teachers and students, that we live in a world of disruptive growth. And let me build my case over here. You all would have heard about Ashoka the Great or Alexander. So how did Alexander and Ashoka fight their battles? With bows, with swords, right? Now let's move ahead 2000 years approximately. So Ashoka and Alexander lived at around 325 BC before Christ. 325 BC is when they lived. Let's move to Akbar. Akbar is around 1600 AD. That's 2000 years between Alexander and Akbar. How did Akbar fight his battles? Again, with a sword and with a bow and arrow. So 2000 years between Ashoka and Akbar, and they fought battles exactly the same. So think about it. The last 400 years have been rapid innovation. First with the Industrial Revolution that happened. So we started fighting then with guns and tanks and lots of other things. Now let's look at it today. What we took 2000 years to innovate in the past now takes a year to innovate. So we live in a world of very rapid innovation. So all of you would have cell phones, for example. I'm sure you do. And all of you change your cell phone every year or every 6 months, because Apple and Samsung come with new operating platforms, new cell phones. So how does that imply? What is the implication to you, students or teachers? The implication is that our learning has to very rapidly change if we have to meet with the demands of the latest innovations. So once you start working, and once you become a doctor, or you become an engineer, or you become in the IAS, or whatever exciting career you take, or medicine like Naren, you'll have to learn very rapidly. You can't rely on what you learned 20 years back. In fact, every year you'll have to gain skills. So innovation in education will be about learning and unlearning a lot of theories that you will learn might be false in the next 20 years. For example, Naren was telling me that the theory of mitochondria has changed over the last 15 years. The structure of the RNA has changed over the last 15 years as human beings have learned more and more. So first, innovation is hitting us in an amazing way. So you as students, you as teachers have to be very innovative in the way, not just you teach, but also the way you learn yourselves. Now it comes to how are we delivering lectures? How do we deliver learning or education? Think about it, everyone. 3 to 4 months back, who could have thought that Naren and I would be talking to you over a webinar? We would never have thought. In fact, the school would have said, why don't you come over to our school and give a lecture? And we would have. And now we are. Naren is in the United States. You guys are in Punjab. I'm in Himachal. We're away by thousands of miles and we're talking to each other. So there's rapid innovation that's happening. So innovation in education is rapidly changing, Naren. The way we are learning is changing. And that is going to be the order of the day. So my thought is going to be innovation is coming in a very rapid way. Absorb innovation. Don't hate it. Take it over. So before I hand it over to Naren, I want to talk about, where I live, where I stay. I'm going to show a small video about Shulani because I would like to make all of you a little jealous about where I am. But also more importantly, I would like to show you the beautiful Shulani campus. So Naren, if you allow me.
Please.
Thank you. So Naren, we are trying to bring in innovation into teaching in a very sizable way. And I'll take a minute over here. For example, you've tied up with a platform called edX, where we're getting teachers from Harvard to teach our students. We're getting teachers from Yale and Princeton and the best universities of the world to teach our students. Webinars like these are absolutely fascinating, and these are now normal part of education at Shulani. So technology, innovation in the way learning happens is going to make world beaters. So, if Kamal is here on the chat, I can't find this beautiful video on Jugaad because, Jugaad is the Indian innovation. I can't find it. Kamal gave that beautiful video to me. So Kamal, if you have that video, you can locate it. I'd love you to play that 2-minute video on Jugaad. But over to you, Naren, till then.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to the discussion. So let me talk about a few more topics on innovation so that we're all on the same page. So I'm talking about innovation as it relates to curiosity. So, how does one get curious? There's so many innovations that are going on in the world, and what do you pay attention to? And for me, innovation is what affects me, what is affecting me, and then I research what that is happening. So motor neuron disease is a disease which, a very good friend of mine has this disease. And over the last 5 years, I've seen him deteriorate in front of my eyes. I feel very sad for him, his family, but he has such positive attitude, amazing, amazing positive attitude. His name is Abhay. And so when I look at him, I said, I'm a biologist. I've studied biology for so many years. I don't know anything about motor neuron disease till 5 years ago. But when I saw him deteriorate, I said, "Ye kuch hoga." There must be some mechanism why this disease is happening. So I started reading a lot. He's an engineer, so he doesn't understand all these papers. So I started reading some of these papers, and then I discovered Stephen Hawking has that disease. It's also called ALS. What happens in this disease is that the neurons start degenerating, and the mechanisms that are now being discovered with the Genome Project, it has been discovered that some genes like SOD1 and what is called C9orf72, which stands for chromosome 9, open reading frame 72, a mutation in these genes causes this disease. And now, if you have a mutation in these disease, in this gene, you would think that you would have the disease. Till a lot of people are doing research on these genes like SOD1, C9orf72. So I'll show you the results of this paper, for example, that I read that was published in Nature. Very interesting result because I was curious to see what happens. Well, a very simple experiment was done by them. You can actually make this mutation in a mouse, and you can make a mouse with a mutated C9orf72 gene. So you have a normal mouse and you have a C9orf72 deleted mouse. And now these mice in their gut can have bacteria like we all do. We all have bacteria in our gut, good bacteria and bad bacteria. And let's call these blue bacteria as good bacteria. If you have good bacteria in your gut, the mouse doesn't get disease. Neither does the gene, the mouse with the defective gene get the disease. And remember, just having the mutation is not sufficient to get the disease. Now, if you have what are called pathogenic bacteria, which are some bad bacteria, normal mice don't get any disease, but C9orf72 deleted mice get ALS. So now suddenly a new mechanism has been discovered for how ALS and these MND mutations can cause disease is by the gut bacteria. This is innovative and very, very fascinating from a disease perspective and also treatment in the future. So that's because of my curiosity that I'm able to study all of these things. So now let me just give you two or three more examples of just amazingly fantastic discoveries that have happened in the last several years. Do you know that there are 4 nucleotides, right? A, C, T, and G. Did you know there are 2 more? They're called X and Y. These are chemically created nucleotides. And a first bacteria has been made with 6 nucleotides. This bacteria reproduces normally and has successfully replicated the X and Y nucleotides into new regular ones. So what does this implicate in terms of what creatures we're going to create in the future, what therapies are going to be made, and how this is going to be used is astronomical. Let's look at data storage in the computer science field. Hard disks and flash drives have been increasing their speed so rapidly, right? If you just look at read and write speed, which is measured in microseconds per bit, hard disks are 5,000 and flash drives are 100. Now, what's being tested and done now is pieces of DNA itself are being used as storage devices. And look at the magnitude of how fast it can go relative to a hard disk. Look at data retention. If you save the material that is used, silicon, to save your data on hard disks and flash drives around 10 years, when the data is stored on DNA, this is electronic data on DNA, you can save it for more than 100 years. And just look at the other power usage and data density that DNA can save data on. So this looks like science fiction, but it's not. Actually, it is done. There is a rewritable digital data storage on live cells via engineering controls of recombinational directionality. And then towards practical, high capacity, low maintenance storage of digital information on synthesized DNA as your material. Amazing stuff. I can go on with a lot of different examples. You know these: virtual reality, the black hole, bionic eyes, quantum computer, 5G. All of these are going to transform the way we live. So how do we look at innovation? How do you become innovative, and what do you do to become innovative? It is through this process of curiosity. You have to be curious all the time about all kinds of things. It will increase your learning and accomplishment during your higher education. It will lead to more exploration. It'll enable you to think deeply. It'll allow you to make some rational decisions, and it'll encourage creative thinking. And this will all result in many good things, like you'll make less decision errors and you'll be more trusting and collaborative. And I just put that example as Amir Khan's character in Three Idiots went to study because he was curious. He was curious about so many things, so he absorbed so much more. Harvard Business Review did a very interesting survey, and Francesca Gino published this paper, and she's published this very surprising result. And this was just published a couple of months ago. In a survey of more than 3,000 employees from wide range of fields and industries, only 24% reported to be feeling curious in their jobs on a regular basis. That's a very surprisingly low number. And 70% of them said that they face barriers to asking more questions at work. So there is a very, very lack of curiosity and the process of curiosity in people in the real world. So as students, you need to start getting into the habit of being curious. And there are many ways you can do that. Here are 4 that I thought of that have come from my readings. Remember that companies hire for curiosity. They ensure that you are curious. Surround yourself with inquisitive mentors and peers. Be in an environment of curiosity. Create a reward system for yourself for curiosity and exploration. Have days like why days, what if days, what might happen if you do, what might happen if you do things. Your curiosity is strongest about the things that affect you deeply. That was my own experience when I looked at the mechanism of MND. So I believe in this cultural training in the education process is as important, sometimes maybe more important than the context of what you learn. So with that, I'll stop here. Thank you very much. I'll hand it over back to Atul to have a hopefully interesting conversation. Looking forward to the questions.
Thank you, Naren. I think 2 or 3 thoughts from my side before I get into that. I think you spoke about asking questions. I'll tell the students over here, students, it's extremely important that you ask questions. I was not a great student. I scored 76% in my 12th, and I still got into IIT. And I think I was able to do that was because very simply, I did ask a lot of questions. And for the teachers over here, I was, my teachers would sometimes like me, sometimes hate me. I was called Dennis the Menace in school, Naren, because I would ask all sorts of stupid questions. And that's what made me what I am today. So just don't hesitate to ask questions, because the more questions you can ask, the more you're going to learn, students. And for teachers, I know you come from a great school. I'm sure you encourage all your students to ask questions. My second thought is great innovation is not about, building great spacecrafts and something absolutely otherworld. Innovation can actually come from absolutely small stuff. Innovation can come from very basic stuff. So I found that small, very interesting video on Jugaad. If you allow me, I'm going to play that. I think we're all going to have a laugh on this one. So this is about Jugaad. Indians and Chinese, as you all know, are great in Jugaad. So I'm going to play this one, if you can. Give me 1 second. Let me see if the sound needs to be on. So yeah, it's there. So fantastic. So can you see the screen, Naren? Can I play it?
Please play it.
Here you go.
जुगाड़ कर ले कोई जुगाड़ कर ले टिकी जुगाड़ पे, दुनिया टिकी जुगाड़ पे। ऊपर नीचे सभी जुगाड़ू, भारी जुगाड़ू हैवी जुगाड़ल, तू भी झंडा गाड़ दे, तू भी झंडा गाड़ दे, झंडा गाड़ दे। डेडलाइन का डंडा प्यारे सबको फोड़ रहा है, नींद में भी हर बंदा किसी रेस में दौड़ रहा है। खुद को बचाना है तो फ्यूचर बनाना है तो यहाँ वहाँ से जहाँ जहाँ से जो उखड़े उखाड़, कर ले जुगाड़, कर ले कोई जुगाड़, कर ले जुगाड़, कर ले कोई जुगाड़। अरे तुक्का मार कोई या कोई तीर मार, कर ले जुगाड़, कर ले कोई जुगाड़, कर ले जुगाड़, कर ले कोई जुगाड़, कर ले जुगाड़, कोई जुगाड़।
That's so nice.
So we are a country of innovators, Naren. I think Indians and Chinese are absolutely stunning when it comes to innovation. So I'm sure students, teachers, you do innovation every day. Let's take it to the next level. Let's commercialize it like the Americans and let's start ruling the world. So I think that's really from my end. We have a few questions over here. But I think before I get into the questions, I'm going to ask a couple of questions to you, Naren, if you allow me.
Please.
So, you've been in the whole world of medicine, and finding new drugs is extremely, extremely expensive. Tell us about one innovation that you've seen that is very simple but changed the world around you, or something that you've seen at Amgen or Biocon or any other company where just a small idea, which people thought stupid, changed the way the world worked.
Yeah, you always put me on a spot, which is great, and it's on live TV, and so it's really everything that I've learned have to. So usually what I do is when a question like this comes, I have to innovate even to give an answer. I have to do some jugaad to give you an answer, and so I think the best way I start by saying, "Hey Atul, that was a really good question." So at least now you feel good that you've asked the good question. So I've taken one thing out of my...
It gives you time to think about the answer. Right?
Exactly. I've got time now to think about it, and I'll drink a cup of coffee. Meanwhile, I'm thinking of what to answer to you. So that is part of the innovative process to answer the question. The thing that immediately comes to mind when you ask a question like that, which is random, and I never knew you were going to ask the question, is what book have I read? Have I read something based on the question that you have read? So recently I read a book called Loon Shots, which basically talks about what you just asked. An idea which was so different from what everybody else was thinking about, but then ultimately became a mega success. And there are many examples of that. Like, for example, Pixar Pictures. Initially, when Pixar started animation through completely different mechanism rather than the Disney type doodling innovation, when they started making 3D kind of things, that really revolutionized the whole animation industry completely. When iPhone started saying, when Steve Jobs started saying that he's going to put an MP3 player in a phone, people probably ridiculed him at that time. Well, how can this happen? Or hundreds of examples like that.
But I would say Zoom has revolutionized
Zoom
the way teaching happens, right?
Exactly, it's happening right in front of our eyes. That this communication tools are increasing dramatically as we speak.
There's a relevant question here, which I think is so relevant for teachers and students. So one of our attendees, he is not, or she, the name is not there, is asking, so why are cutoffs there during admissions in colleges if marks don't matter?
That's for you.
I would say, first of all, good colleges and good universities do not, apart from the government ones, I'm not talking about those, do not worry about your marks anymore. For example, if you apply to Shulani, marks don't really matter. What matters is your curiosity. So we will ask you to go through a small interview. And I think if you show the curiosity in that interview, we'll also ask you to write a small a page about your purpose of life and what you want to do. And I think if you have that curiosity, then honestly, marks don't matter at Shulini. I think you can do so well. I've had so many students, Naren, who didn't come from backgrounds which were 90% marks. And they have just gone out and done spectacularly well, including getting admission into top universities like Stanford. So unfortunately, marks do matter in our government systems. But I mean, if you look at the JEE, for example, or look at NEET, your 12 standard marks don't matter. The way you'll answer the competitive exams matter. And I can tell you the JEE exam, from my experience, is a very tough one. If you have the basics in place, you can clear the JEE. And if you don't have the basics in place, whatever you do, you won't be able to clear the JEE. So marks, 12th marks, I don't know where they matter, honestly, because if you want to go into the best universities, the government ones, you need to clear the JEE or the NEET. And if you want to get into the best private universities, especially Ashoka, Shivnadar, Shulini, OP Jindal, I don't think we look at marks, we look at your ability to deliver. So that's my answer. I think in the US also, marks don't really matter. You have to take an exam called the SAT or the SAT, and you have to write your essays and you have to get recommendations. And I think those matter much more than your marks. Am I right, Naren?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You've covered all the topics. Yes, absolutely correct.
So Dia is asking, how do you build a curiosity in people so that they observe small stuff and they start asking questions? How do they observe the surroundings? I think it's a beautiful question, Naren.
Yeah. I think that's a very nice question. And it's not something that is intrinsic in us right in the beginning. As a baby, you can see a baby is very curious. As all of us, when we were children, we are constantly curious. Ye chua, wo chua, aag ko bhi haath laga diya. Jo garam cheez hai, usko bhi haath laga diya. So we are constantly curious. We lose our sense of ability to curiosity. And I don't know, there may be many reasons. And I think one of the reasons is that we think we are being judged by other people. So if you're curious and you ask too many questions, people will say, "Itne question kyun pooch raha hai?" Yeah, if somehow the curiosity process deteriorates over time. And that survey done by Harvard Business Review is shocking, actually, where if only 24% of the people in a workplace, diverse workplace, are curious, that doesn't bode well for society at large. So the process of curiosity has to be cultivated.
I would also say, and you can also judge with that, Naren, while only 24% are curious, the ones who are curious are the ones who will actually succeed. The ones who are curious will actually become the CEOs, or they are the ones who are going to become successful. I've been doing some webinars on how do you crack the UPSC, and many of the students or teachers would like to get into the IAS or IPS, which is very preferred job in India. And we were asking these very senior IAS officers that, how do you crack the UPSC? And, the answer that came about was, first is curiosity. So read your newspapers, understand what's happening around you, understand what's happening in the world, understand what's happening in India, which is the three circles that you spoke about, Naren. What's happening around me, what's happening around my environment, what's happening in the world. And I think these are the type of questions that you need to succeed. So absolutely, I think curiosity is so important. But I think curiosity, like you rightly said, Naren, can be built. So we actually have a course on building observation and curiosity at Shulini. And the task over there is that every individual, every student is given a task to go to a particular place, and they have to do minute observations about what they see. And it's very interesting. Many times we just do not see the obvious. So I saw a beautiful bird today sitting on a tree very close to home. And I've been living in my home for the last 4 years, you know that, Naren. There was a tree that I hadn't seen. For the last 4 years, this tree I had not seen. I asked my wife, I said, Avni, have you seen this tree? She said, no, we missed it. Can you believe for 4 years, there's a small little tree tucked under the window and we have not observed it. And that's what happens, I think, to all of us in our daily lives. We forget to see important things right under our noses. So I would request all of you to go back home and see all the different things which are sitting in your room and try to remember them. And that's an amazing trait to have if you can build it. So Ayushi is asking a question. She's saying, thank you very much. And we're really enjoying it. So thank you, Naren, for that. She's also very happy that she could participate in it. And she's got a question. So she's saying, how can one feed his or her curiosity when the world is running so fast? I mean, like if I'm curious about something, I want to know more about it, but it's hard to make time for that stuff, all the school assignments and that hobbies and all the stuff that what's doing. So, Naren, you've been very successful. You've been the CEO of companies. You've earned crores in your life. And yet you've had the curiosity to learn music. Tell us about that. How you do it? How do you prioritize? And I wanted to play, before that, I want to play the flute, for everyone so that they believe that you know how to play the flute.
Okay, so let me play the flute and then I'll explain to you what I've tried to do. Let's see. I was hoping you would ask me this question at the end because the song I'm going to play today sort of relates to that. You'd see. It's in Rag Yaman.
So for the audience who've not been able to identify the song, it's a ghazal by Farida Khanum, Aaj Jaane Ki Zid Na Karo. Am I right, Naren? And I think Shruti also got it right. So wonderful. But tell us the answer for this. How do you prioritize? I mean, that's the question. You learned to play the flute after you got gray hair, Naren, and you were working like 24 hours a day. How do you do it?
One of the ways, there are many ways to do this. And one of the things that I think Ayushi had also asked was, how do you get curious? What I do is I schedule them in a particular time of the day or things. Like, for example, I like to read a lot of journals. I like to read a lot of papers. I'm reading a lot of COVID papers. So I subscribe to the journal called Nature. So I always, I like to read in the morning. So I'm a morning person. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and my mind is racing in the morning. I want to absorb a lot of reading material in the morning. So I take my cup of tea, I sit outside and then, read because that's when I absorb the most. So from, let's say 5 to 6 or 7 o'clock, I'll read because that's when I absorb the most. If I read at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, kuch jata hi nahi andar. So, you figure out what you do best when you do best and then do that. So for example, the flute, when I'm tired in the evening, then physically tired, then I pick up my flute. One of the advantages of the flute is a very simple instrument. You can pick it up and I can lie in my bed also and play it, right? So I play flute in the evening. So I've allocated time to play the flute. So I allocate times on a weekly basis and a daily basis to do things, so that there's a rhythm to doing things. So you keep doing things one at a time and you will get to, that's sort of the methodology I use.
I'm going to make a small point over here, Naren. I went to IIT Kanpur and I studied there. And it was very interesting, Naren. Every student who goes to IIT is not just what we call Maggu or Padhaku or whatever we call it. And this is also, by the way, reflected in Three Idiots. Everyone has a hobby. So you'll be surprised, teachers, surprised students, that everyone has something. For example, I'm a qualified pilot. I fly planes, and I learned to do that at IIT Kanpur. I also used to delve into politics. I was the president of the IIT Kanpur Students Union. And I now love to cook. I'm experimenting with traveling. I do lots of things. I'm a sort of a jack of all trades, probably master of none. So what do? I think it's all about when you take out time and do something that you love to do, even stuff that you don't love to do becomes more interesting. So I'll encourage my students, dear students over here, to continue to pursue their hobbies. It's so important. I think the second thing is also students, something which I did, I would always concentrate in class. So if a maths teacher was teaching me for that 40 minutes, I would not drift into my dreams. That 40 minutes of lecture meant I concentrated, which meant, Naren, I didn't have to go back home and do any tuitions anymore. I never did any tuitions. I knew pretty much everything because I was concentrating in class. It's not that easy, but I think if you practice, it came to me naturally. But I think if you practice, students, you can do that. So I would say you don't need 10 hours every day of study to succeed into JEE or NEET. You need 3 to 4 hours. In fact, I used to make I made a small notebook, Naren, where I used to write how many hours of study do I show my mom and dad, and how many hours do I actually study. So I would show to them that I'm studying 8 hours, 10 hours every day, but my actual average was 2 hours every day. So 3 to 4 hours, in my opinion, if you really focus, is good enough, students. And if you do that, you can learn to play the flute. You can do lots of amazing things. Yes, 11, 12 are very important. Focus on studies. But once you get into college, once you get to a good university, which encourages the flow of innovation, make sure you innovate. Come to Shulini, we encourage our students to think outside the box. Only 60% of the coursework, Naren, at Shulini is actually on core courses. We want students to learn music. We want them to learn whatever they want to learn, computers. It's up to them. And I think that's the role of the university also. So that's a question, how do we make the schooling system change? Unfortunately, Tushar, and he's asking the question, CBSE and ICSE and the others are not going to change. But I think we can add in our curriculum as teachers, we can add a course on curiosity. We can add you can add an observation skills class for your, I know there's a lot of pressure in 11th and 12th, but from 6th to 10th, you can add these type of classes, which I'm sure you do. You've got hobby classes, you can do stuff on Saturdays. But how do we change the schooling system? That's a long, big debate. I think we all are fighting for that. Let's hope that happens. I really feel sad for all the dear students who are working so hard in their 11th and 12th, going for tuitions, going to quota, which is so depressing, and trying to sort of clear NEET and JEE. I don't really have an answer for that. This question is for you. Harinder ma'am is asking, how do we develop curiosity in young children? What do we do?
I've thought about that quite a bit. And so I'm going to answer that question directly. In fact, you have to do nothing. Actually, you do less. Children are naturally curious. हम लोग उनको inhibit कर देते हैं. So that is one thing that I feel like, children are curious naturally. Let them be curious. Let them ask crazy questions. Enable that. So that is, I think, that I feel from after thinking about it a lot and talking to young, small children, the smaller the child you talk, the more curious the child is. So I think what we are doing in society for ourselves by forcing them to try to do something, we are actually doing something wrong. So let them be, is my opinion. I know it's a casual answer, but I think there's a lot of depth in what I said, and maybe we can talk offline about specific things we can try to do.
I agree. We should just let kids be, and they are by nature very curious. They'll figure their way out. But I think we as elders, even students for 11th and 12th or teachers who are there, we should encourage our young children young brothers, sisters to ask questions, and we should answer those questions. I think that's very, very important. It's so important we ask questions. Anonymous attendee, I wished you had written your name. You're asking, can reading the Bhagavad Gita make us curious? I think reading any book makes you curious, and the Bhagavad Gita is absolutely amazing. So answer is absolutely yes, but read any book. You read a book, and Naren will say the first time you read a book, you read the book. The second time you ask questions about what the author is going to say, and the third time you critique the author. So read a book 3 times, read the Bhagavad Gita. That's a phenomenal book. I think it's the same attendee asking, do dreams define our curiosity? Naren, what do you think?
Very good. So since you brought up Bhagavad Gita, one of the things that I've been learning as my gray hair is becoming thinner is reading a little bit of our own scriptures. So through a different process, I've been reading a few things about, let's say, Upanishads in this case. And I read it from a more philosophical perspective and a spiritual perspective rather than a religious perspective. So this is the answer for the dream. In Mandukya Upanishad, there are 4 phases of our lives that we live every day. One is what is called the Jagrit Avastha, which means the awakened state that we live in. And what happens here is that we have 9 senses, and we are constantly looking at the outside, and I can see a tree, I can see Atul, I can see Shulini University written here. All of these external stimuli are affecting me one way or the other, right? When you sleep, and your early sleep, which is called Swapnasthana, which is your early sleep, that's your dream state, and you close your eyes and you're sleeping. But in fact, everything that is happening in your dream is as real as normal, because what happens is, if you close your eyes and you say, I'm in Shulini or in Solan, if you're not in Solan in the beginning, you don't ask yourself, how did I get here? Did I take a plane to come here, or how did I get here? You are just there. So in your dream state, you don't have to explain. It is as real as the Jagrata Avastha, except you're asleep, right? In fact, if a tiger is attacking you in your dream, you will sweat. So it is as good as real. Then the next state is called, blanking out. Anyway, it is the next state, which is your deep sleep, Sushuptasthana. So that is, you don't remember anything. You don't remember what you dream, right? And then the final state, it is not a linear final state. It is the ultimate state, which is called the Turiya state, which is actually called the 4th state. And that is an ultimate bliss state, which is, it is an amazing space to be in, which all meditation makes you get there. And that is a state which is where you have to be aware of what is happening. And that is, the awareness comes, you have to be aware when you're awake. So to answer a long answer to your question, yes, absolutely, dreams will make you curious.
I would like to add over here, Naren, dream big. Daydreaming is phenomenal, for increasing curiosity. Build a passion to succeed. If you want to get into IIT, just push yourself and say कि मैं करना ही है. इतनी शिद्दत से तुम्हें पाने की कोशिश की है कि हर जर्रे ने हमें मिलाने की साजिश की है. So जिस पे आप जोर लगाओगे वो होगा. तो believe करो कि आप कर सकते हो, and you can do it. Curiosity will come, innovation will come, everything will come if you really want to do it. There's a question around, sir, can you help us reducing some syllabus? So मैं आपका 11-12 का तो नहीं कर सकता, but मैं आपको ये बता सकता हूँ. Yeah, I have completely changed the syllabus at Shulini, Naren. When I came, teachers were doing 30 hours of teaching a week. I brought it down to 18 hours, and I've made lots and lots of optional subjects. Like, my dream is that a computer scientist should know music. There is a lot of learning in music and combination of music and computer science. So only 60% today of our total credits or syllabus that we say is core courses, and the remaining 40 are complete options. And those options could be not in engineering, there could be music, there could be hotel management, there could be business, economics, whatever you want to learn, biotechnology. And I think that's the way syllabuses should be. And that's the belief we have at Shulini. So come to Shulini if you don't like all those long, boring syllabuses. But of course, You have to work hard, you have to learn. And he's also joking that I'm suffering a lot due to multiple dreams. Yes, dream, but then focus on your dreams also. You have to work hard. I'm going to pick up the last question by Raghav. Raghav is saying, we are encouraged in schools to get more marks. Rarely are we enlightened about the importance of innovation. So how do we spread this culture if it's not even articulated in schools? So at some level, you're right, Raghav. I think I would assume your school does push you towards curiosity. You've got hobby classes, you've got other classes. So I'm assuming that your school will do it. But I think it's your onus also. So go ahead and read books. No one can stop you from reading books, Raghav. Or if you're a teacher, please educate yourself beyond your core subjects. Just remember that. Start thinking that you should be able to answer any question on any subject. Have a curiosity, read the newspapers, watch television, watch webinars like these. You'll just gain a knowledge. And there's a very amazing research done, Naren. Curious people also live longer. Curious people typically live beyond 80 with a healthy mind, because your neurons are being activated all the time and you don't get dementia. So curiosity is not just about being successful, but it's also about leading a healthy, long life. If that makes any sense. You know more about it than I do.
Yeah.
So Gursirat is saying, I'm a finance student with music as my optional. So Gursirat, congratulations. You already are curious. So hopefully you can also do amazing stuff. I'll pick up one last question. I think Sanya is asking, now my question is, we are in the era of rapid development and we don't even have time for your family. Now, how can we get time for curiosity and thinking and innovation? As students, we have pressure all the time to study day and night. What do we do? How do we get good marks? Please guide. So students, there are two ways to think about it. First of all, 11th, 12th is the time to study. So I will encourage you to study, because you study well, you'll get into a good university, a good college, IIT, medical college, Shulani, other good colleges in the US. So don't defocus for 11th and 12th. These are important times. Having said that, do take 30 minutes out. Do something that you love to do. You can't be working and studying, 24 hours. So I would say 30 minutes, 1 hour, do something that you love to do. It will clear your mind and you'll actually study better. Trust me over here, Sanya. So if you love to listen to music, but only 1 hour, huh? And my last thought to students is, get away from Facebook, WhatsApp, and any other form. TikTok, of course, the government has got you out of TikTok, because these are time consumers. So one of the things which I do is I've got I used to, now I'm back because I use it for work, Naren. You have to be out of WhatsApp and just delete those. WhatsApp is not good anymore. Facebook, suddenly you will release 2 hours every day. Sanya, अगर आप WhatsApp और Facebook नहीं करोगे, 2 घंटे, I can guarantee हर बच्चा आजकल Facebook और WeChat कर रहा है. हम भी कर रहे हैं, नरेन. तो उतने से ही आपको बहुत टाइम मिलेगा. So be disciplined would be also something that I'd like to say.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, we are coming to an end to our webinar. It's been amazing, talking to all of you. One last question I'm tempted, and Manraj is asking, can we turn curiosity into a professional career? So that's your last question, Naren, and then we'll have to say bye-bye. I think it's an end to the 1 hour. So last question to you, can curiosity be turned into a professional career?
Yeah, I think, I'm sure you have some idea, the basis on which you're asking the question. So whatever your idea is, write it down. And then when you write it down now, you will actually see it rather than just think it. And then once you write it down, you can explain to yourself further and further and keep writing more about it and draw pictures around, what you're writing around. And that the curiosity needs to be fed with either drawing all your capabilities, and then suddenly something will appear. Go for it.
Absolutely. Harshita is saying, sir, WhatsApp पे ही तो स्कूल का होमवर्क आता है. तो हर्षिता सिर्फ स्कूल का होमवर्क ले करो, बाद में गप्पे मारने के लिए मत यूज करो. I think that's a right point. You can't delete these. चलो Facebook पे start कर लो, WhatsApp रख लो आप. Facebook delete कर दो हर्षिता. Okay. Anyway, lovely talking to all of you. Before we close, I am going to have Naren give his very last thoughts and wish all you students good luck and teachers good luck. Naren, your last thoughts before you call it a day.
So I'm going to give you a little secret, Abdul, and I'm going to ask you to invite her next week. So a week on week, I've been doing these sessions with you, and she's a very good friend of mine. Her name is Ruchi Thukaral, and she lives in San Francisco. And every week, I spend a lot of time talking about what I'm going to speak to in this webinar. And so I would like to request us to invite her next time so that she can also start talking about certain things. She's a fascinating fashion designer, and you'll enjoy talking to her. So
we'll do that. I think you're all welcome. If you liked Naren and you liked this webinar, it added curiosity. We talk about different subjects, 4:30 p.m. every Wednesday on the same link on YouTube or Zoom. You can be there. So Shikha, you can distribute it to the school if you really want. Of course, don't waste your time. You have to do your studies also, students. But if it adds to your curiosity, we'd be inviting you over here and would love to participate in our discussions. You know, I cracked the JEE many years back. It was 1989 when I cracked the JEE. Things have changed, but I think the principles are still the same, Naren. And the principles are: go, do not rote, do not remember, understand why 1 + 1 is 2. Understand, you know, it's not that difficult to crack JEE. You just have to understand the principles. So I'll give one last thought to all of you, because they're all students and teachers over here. There are patterns in life. There are patterns in JEE, and there are probably not more than 100 patterns or 100 different types of questions. If you can understand the patterns in life, if you can understand those 100 different patterns in JEE or NEET, you can pretty much answer every question, because they all come from those patterns. So try to identify those patterns. Teachers try to demonstrate those patterns to your students. JEE is not difficult. I have worked and I have been with lots of students, Naren, who are not that brilliant, and they still crack the JEE because it's a little bit of science. So you guys can do it. I think if we could inspire even 3 students and a few teachers in this webinar, our purpose is solved. So thank you very much. Last thought, Naren, apart from, you know, we'll definitely get your friend over. I think let's do that. Any last thought to the teachers and the students that you'd like to give before we call goodbye?
You know, because my session was about curiosity, I think deeply about curiosity itself, and you'll figure out a way to innovate.
Absolutely. So start innovating, start loving. एक बहुत फेमस पोएम है जावेद अख्तर की, उसका नाम है दो राह, और उसके 2 पंक्तियां मैं बोलूंगा. उन्होंने अपने बेटी के लिए लिखा, जोया अख्तर के लिए, who's a very famous director. He says, ये जीवन एक राह नहीं दो राह है, पहला रास्ता तो बहुत सहल है, ये रास्ता तो हर कोई जीता है. And then he goes on. I won't go through the poem. दूसरा रास्ता बहुत कठिन है, इस रास्ते पर चलने वालों को कभी धूप नहीं मिलती, कभी छांव नहीं मिलती, धूप ही धूप मिलती है. ये उन लोगों का रास्ता है जो खुद तक जाते हैं, जो खुद को पहचानते हैं. मगर मुझे ये भी गम है कि अभी तक तुमको अपनी पहचान नहीं है. तो हम किसी को भी अभी तक अपनी पहचान नहीं है. सो अगर आप में थोड़ी हिम्मत है, आप अपने आप में जाइए, वो रास्ता लीजिए जो आपके दिल में जाता है, और आप बहुत सक्सेसफुल होंगे जब आप पैशन से काम करेंगे. So these are my last thoughts for the dear teachers and the dear students. Once again, thank you very much. It's been amazing talking to all of you. Naren, always so wonderful to talk to you, so inspirational. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye.